Yesterday morning at 4:30, we lost a great American leader, one of the greatest soldiers in the world, and a dear friend of Korea. General Powell always talked to me about his love and pride for America, where he was born. And secondly, he talked a lot about Jamaica, where his dear parents immigrated from to find a better life in America. And lastly, he talked a lot about his affection for Korea and how Korea was so important in the early phase of his life, as it was in Korea where he gained his confidence as a soldier and where he decided to remain and pursue his career in the U.S. Army. I met General Powell for the first time around 1994, soon after he retired from the military, at a dinner honoring him with the Ronald Reagan Freedom Award at a restaurant called Chasen, which was the most famous restaurant in Beverly Hills then. I still remember that first encounter with the general vividly. There were about 200 people at the dinner, and my wife and I were the only Asians, and the general and his wife Alma were the only African Americans, along with Johnny Mathis, who was the entertainer that evening. So five of us minorities in a crowd of 200 people. Welcome to the Republican Party. I had a chance to chat with him at a cocktail reception before dinner. And as I introduced myself to him, told him that I was from Korea, his face brightened up and told me that he lived in Dongchino, like Ambassador Stevens said, for a year when he was a battalion commander as a lieutenant colonel in 1974. And he continued on telling me how much he enjoyed being in Korea and how much he loved Korea and the Korean people. The following year, his best-selling book, My American Journey, came out, and I was surprised to see that one whole chapter was about his time in Korea. But the book wasn't going to be published in Korea. So I went to meet the general's chief of staff, who then introduced me to the publisher at Random House. Since time was essence there, I got rights for the book, for the Korean version of the general's book, and I also became the publisher and the translator of the book. The general was very happy to hear that the Korean version became a bestseller. What I didn't tell him was that not only was I the publisher and the translator of the book, but I also bought most of the book that was printed. And that's how our friendship began. And I invited him to Korea for his book signing event. And hundreds of cadets from the 3 Korean military academies show up to get their books signed by the generals. Books they didn't have to buy since I gave them for free. He also used my desk for the signing event. And when everything ended, I opened the desk drawer and asked him to write something. So he wrote, "Remember, Roy, it can be done, and you will always be the one to do it." It was one of the general's favorite line, and it also translates well in Korean. 하면 된다. So over the 25 years, whenever I doubted myself, I would open the drawer and get my confidence back. When the general was the Secretary of State, there were countless times when I was asked by the Korean government to assist on something, and he always did his best to help. But the Korean government at that time had a special talent of asking for something at the worst time possible. I won't go into details, but it would have been much better just leaving things as scheduled rather than trying to expedite everything. Yet the general never complained to me about it. After he returned to private life, he asked me to join the board of visitors at the Colin Powell's school at CCNY, his alma mater. We had 2 board meetings a year, and we would meet in New York the day before, and I would take him to a Korean restaurant. He loved kimchi, japchae, and bulgogi. When COVID hit, we would exchange emails a lot and also talk over the phone. Beginning of this year, I would always stop by his house every 2 months, and we will chat for about an hour over Coke Zero. The general and I had one thing in common. We were both C- students in college. But we both understood the importance of a good education And that is why the General's pride and joy towards his final years was about helping young students at his school. Whenever he met his students there, his face will brighten up with a big smile, unlike when he had a gloomy look or a forced smile when he met politicians or people from the media. I last saw General Powell on August 13th, and we chatted for almost an hour over Coke Zero. And I could already see that he was slowing down, and this was even before he caught COVID. And even then, he was more worried about his wife of 57 years, Alma, and his friends who weren't doing well. So as much as I am devastated by his passing away, I find solace in that I didn't have to see him suffer in pain or the embarrassment of seeing him slipping away. He would not have taken it well himself at all. So he left this world on his own term. So, General Powell, my dear friend, my mentor, my brother, I will really miss you as no words can express. But you don't have to worry about this battleground called Earth anymore. You will be in a better and peaceful place called heaven in the hands of our Almighty God. And for all of you here tonight, whether you are an American, Korean, or from any other country, this world could be a better place, united in peace and prosperity. And like General Powell said, it can be done. And each one of you here tonight, you will be the one to do it. Thank you very much.